Hi everyone, it's Debbie Mirza, the author of The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist. And today I'm going to tell you the story of how this book came about. Because this is not something, this is on the list of things I didn't see coming. And some of you have asked me about it, and I've told the story in different interviews I've done on podcasts. But I don't think I've done a YouTube video on it. And I want to share it with you because I think part of it you'll really relate to help validate, your own experience and your own trauma that you're going through. So, okay. I'm going to be open to a point. I don't feel free at this point in my life because of certain people that are affected to tell you the whole story, but I will tell you parts. As far as who I'm talking about, I won't mention that yet. So what happened was I had been working on my own healing, I'll say, after leaving a relationship with a covert narcissist. And I had gone through my own confusion and my own search. Someone had pointed out, this person is acting narcissistic, and had asked me, is this person a narcissist? And I was like, that's the last, that's a word I would never use to describe this person. And so I asked why, and she listed all these different traits that she had noticed with this person in my life at the time. And I was really confused. But it was like, because it had been a really confusing relationship, especially toward the end during the discard phase, which, as a lot of you know, the coverts tend to become overt, and their behavior is really something you've never experienced before. And you're like, what's going on? So I did a lot of research. I went to Barnes and Noble and I sat down and I pulled out a stack of books on narcissism. And most of it, really all the books were about overtly narcissistic people. And so a lot of the stories was I didn't relate to. Well, no, this person doesn't have a flashy car and isn't obnoxious and outwardly selfish or anything like that. But there were underlying things that I was like, I have felt a lot of rage from them for a long time. I have experienced that. Okay, yeah, I do see that. So there was enough to make me keep researching and keep going. And I worked on myself for quite a while, and I did get very clear, even though that cognitive dissonance is just incredibly powerful. The whole competing thoughts, you've thought of this person in this way, and now you're seeing truths about them, and you're having a really hard time reconciling that. Whew, I get emotional. To be totally truthful with you, I'm wearing a scarf for a reason, because when I talk about really emotionally charged things, I completely break out in a red rash. You can see it. Anyway, I knew, because it's years later, there's an emotional charge still, and that's complex PTSD. That's what happens. Whew. So, I had been through I'd gone through a lot of education. On my own research, I went to YouTube like you are right now. I read articles, I read books, but it wasn't until, and I went to a support group for narcissistic abuse. Once I saw wow, I'm on the right track. I also was already in a life coaching community because I had gone through Martha Beck's life coach training, which is amazing, years ago. And so I reached out to coaches in the community who knows about this, and I found one woman that I spoke with, and she asked me a lot of questions, and I was like, that's strange. I wouldn't have thought that was true of narcissists. And I talk about all this in my book, if you haven't read it. So, and then it wasn't until I found this other coach that was not in my community of coaches, and I explained to her my story, and she said to me the words I needed to hear. She said, this person sounds like a covert passive-aggressive narcissist, and they're the most difficult to recognize because they are so covert and they are so subtle. The abuse is so subtle. And when she said those words, it was like just the nature of those words gave me the pieces to the puzzle that I needed. So I now had the words to put in a Google search, covert passive-aggressive narcissist. That's when it was still difficult to find information, but I would find little pieces here and there and put it to, start putting them together. I still at that point didn't think I'm going to write a book about this. I just wanted to heal and move on with my life. But as you know, or maybe you're learning, when you're with a covert narcissist, when you leave them, they don't leave you alone. And I did a video on this too. And that's what happened to me. And I was getting these really emotionally abusive emails. And I finally stood up for myself and I wrote back and I said, if you send me any more of these emotionally abusive emails, I'm going to have to block you, and we're going to have to, only communicate through, this other means. After I sent that email, I think 3 hours later, I received like a 3-page single space. Whew, still feeling it. Really horrific, painful, hurtful, cruel email. As you, I'm sure, have experienced, it's like a fire hose of horrific things from someone who you genuinely loved and trusted. And what that did to me, I know you'll relate. You can literally feel the energy of trauma entering your body as you're reading it. I don't think I'll describe it because I don't want to re-injure you as you're listening to this, because that can be vicarious trauma when we share the same type of trauma. I'm very cautious about how I explain things, because if I let out all my emotions around it, that can re-traumatize you, and I don't want to do that to you. You've been through enough. So that's also a reason I'm taking these breaths, because I feel protective of you as well, and of myself. So what that email did to me, it sent me into 3 days of almost like not literally and fully, but a semi-catatonic state where I stared out the window. It felt like for 3 days, I didn't speak very much. I felt numb. And then times emotions would rise up. I woke up every morning crying. And it was the third morning, I woke up crying again. And I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden the tears kind of turned to a strength that was rising inside me. And as I laid there, my eyes were closed. I literally saw the cover of a book that said The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist in big, bold, capital letters. And I remember hearing a story, I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert, that talked about it's like books come to you with an invitation, and it's up to you whether you want to accept it. And that's what I felt was happening in that moment. And I took it very seriously. And I thought, if I write this book, I know myself and I will put my all into it and I will make it so helpful and the most comprehensive book out there. And so it's like I had a conversation with the book and I said, I will do it. I will do it. I will write you. It makes me still emotional. And I will put my full self into this book and I will interview people. I don't want this to be just my own story. I want this to be helpful for people who have bosses and coworkers and parents and spouses and siblings and any type of relationship with a covert narcissist. You know, I want this information to be truthful and accurate. So I literally for that year, I had these different plans and I canceled everything. And I thought, I am going to commit myself to this book. And I interviewed at that time over 100 people. It's been a lot more now. I asked so many questions. I talked to people all over the world, in Australia, in the UK, in Malaysia. I've now talked to people on so many different continents, in India and the Middle East. I talked to a woman in Iran and a woman in Cyprus, and it's incredible. It's incredible how a woman in Thailand, now I'm like thinking of different people. It's incredible how many cultures are affected by this and how it's the same story. It's the same story. So you are not alone. This is a widespread horribleness that is, in most countries, if not every country. So back to the story. Where was I? So I guess that's the story. So I ended up writing the book. At the time, I did a ton of research. I had so many notes, and I thought, how am I going to take all these notes and put it into this book? I'm a very organized, efficient person. So I cleared out my garage and I bought these 28 by 32 posted papers from Staples, and I separated them into chapters, and I hung them all over the wall of my garage, and I put a card table down there with a chair, and I wrote this book in my garage half of the time, the other half in my room. So it has been incredible, the response to the book. I think at the time I wrote it, I didn't even understand how widespread this is, how huge an issue this is facing us today. I hope that comes as a source of comfort and encouragement to you, that you're not the only one. There are so many people saying the same thing, the cognitive dissonance, the intermittent reinforcement, the covertness. These people are so well liked for the most part. So that is the story of how the book came about. And I so appreciate all of you that I've heard from, that the book has helped so much. It's opened up my world in ways that I never expected. And I'm so grateful that I was chosen, that I was given that invitation, and I'm proud of myself for taking it. It really took a lot out of me. I will say I had some health issues by the end of it that I needed to take care of, and which led me to even more upping the self-care and self-love that we all need to do. But I want you to know, as I wrote it, I had you in mind. I also had flying monkeys in mind, that I had to coach myself almost every day to just focus on you, the reader, the person that really was looking for the answers. So thank you for all your beautiful comments, and know that you are definitely not alone, and we're in this together. And I'm here to support you in any way I can. So sending you lots of love, and I'll talk to you soon.